everyone. Welcome. And my name is Lisa Gutierrez. We are from Dos Hermanos Taco Truck, and we are the sponsor for this session today. Dos Hermanos serves authentic Mexican food locally throughout the city of Columbus. And thank you for all your support and kind words. And I am here to introduce your speaker for this session, Bethany George. Yay! And she is going to talk about social capital, which is just so ironic because her and I met recently and spent some time, and because of our networking, have really seen, what it can do for your business. So, thank you. Bethany George.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. So, social capital. This will be a fun topic. I'm looking forward to unpacking this with everybody. And I'm really excited you all chose this particular breakout because I looked at all the other breakouts that were available. So I was picking my own for the first and the third. And there's a lot of good options right now, particularly in this second one. So I'm excited that you decided to come here today. We are going to talk about capturing and creating momentum for your professional life through your social network. And we'll unpack what that means, why it's important, and how you do that. So there'll be some practical things. We can do a little exercise. But before I start that off, I would love to hear from some of you ladies. Why did you pick this particular one? What does this phrase mean to you? And potentially, what are you hoping to get out of today's session? Who am I and why do I get to speak about this topic? So my name is Bethany George. My business is The Follow-Up Boss. And I mostly operate in kind of the sales and networking space for businesses. And the reason why this space is important to me is because people matter to me. The number one most important resource that you have available to you in your professional life, whether you own a business or work for a company, the most important resource that you have are the people that you know. And we live in a time and an age right now where we're kind of inundated with automation, with AI, with this concept that the computer can take over the things for us. But at the end of the day, we are still humans. We are still social creatures, and those relationships we build will always have more power than the digital spaces that we use. And I want to show you, as we unpack a lot of this, what that looks like and how you can do that. I have note cards to keep on track. All right, I am a big nerd. I love a good Star Trek reference. So I called in Captain Picard here to help me today break down the questions. But I'm actually going to start with the why before we talk about what is social capital. Why is this important? Firstly, as I mentioned, we're humans. And in the professional space, too often we forget that piece. It seems so obvious, and yet the simplicity of us makes us just kind of glance over it. We create emotional bonds. Think about the people that you know, the places you've gotten, the job that she mentioned that she'd gotten to. Lisa and I know each other because of our connection as speakers last year. We reached out, we know each other. I don't know how many times I've had doors open because of connections I've made, but it didn't start with, I want an opportunity through you. It started with, I like you. I see that you wear purple, so do I, all the time. I love that you spoke about that topic, and so do I. I'm passionate about that as well. There was some resonance, some emotional connection that was made. And those emotional connections go deeper than we can even begin to imagine. So the very first reason why this topic is important is that we are humans that create emotional bonds. And that is the core of what drives us every day. The second reason ties back into what AJ spoke about this morning, our dreams, our desires, the things that we wish to create. Everybody in this room has some big thing that they want to do with their life. And you can't do it alone. It requires you standing on the shoulders of others. And this, again, there's this concept that sometimes we feel happens in professional spaces where we feel like we have to step on others to get what we want. But there's kind of a beauty oftentimes within women's spaces where we recognize, I don't need to step on you. I just need a hand up. And when I get up there, I'll pull you up. And it's amazing when we recognize that we can do that, what can be created from that. So the why is this big, beautiful, broad thing. but it is in our very core what makes it purposeful. The what, I'm going to talk about the concept of, what is social capital? Social, in this case, is relationships. Capital, the phrase capital is usually referenced to finances. We need capital to start a business because we need to build a building or get supply or inventory. The phrase the description I found is a form of wealth to be used to create something. Social capital helps us create something more. Money can only buy us so much, but the connections that we have can create something greater. Lisa had the opportunity of going to the White House. I don't know how many of you caught that this morning. It was through connections that she had made that she got that opportunity. It was through connections that I had made that gave me the opportunity to be here this morning. There's stories, each of you have stories of connections that you have that got you where you are now. And that, with purposeful intention, can get you what you want to create. On that what side, let's talk about relationships and the different kinds of relationships. So I found a description of 4 levels of relationships. When I describe them, you'll be like, oh yeah, I see that. The first level is acquaintance or surface level. Right now, we're kind of all acquaintances. If you've talked with anybody in this room, but that's about all you've gotten to, you're an acquaintance. We have lots of them. If you've ever done anything with a direct selling company, there's a very good chance you were asked to make a list of all the acquaintances you have, because they're going to ask you to call of them. Many of us have been down that road. Acquaintances are obvious to recognize. The second level is casual. Now, this is someone you know their name, you recognize their face, you'd probably wave at them if you saw them at the store. If suddenly they passed away, you'd probably go to their funeral. You know who they are, they know who you are. You probably don't know much more beyond that. Then we have close. Those are your friends. Those are people that you hang out with when you don't have anything else to do, or do want to do something. Those are people you invite to your birthday party. They'd invite you to their wedding. Those kind of things. And the fourth level is intimate. Obviously, your spouse fits into that. But more than that, there are lots of relationships you have that are intimate as well. Close friends, people you call on, people that when in your darkest hour, you pick up that phone and be like, I need someone to talk me through this moment. Those are your intimate relationships. And it's good to recognize those levels, because oftentimes people fall into certain levels just kind of by happenstance. What I want to talk to you about is a way to be intentional about what level they're in, because we can utilize those relationships with purpose. Has anybody heard of the Dunbar Rule? I'm sure you've heard of it when I describe it. There's a phrase that is this concept of there's a cognitive limit of how many people you can know. And the number is around 150. Has anybody ever heard of that concept? Ooh. Okay, well, get out of your head. Don't think about it now. It was originally proposed by a gentleman who was comparing mammals and their social structure and how many connections they can have. And it was a neat idea. And there's been more research since then, and I hear people still talk about this concept. There's a cognitive limit of how many people you can know. Now, human connections and our social structure is very complex. I just mentioned 4 different levels of connections we have. Clearly, we know more than 150 people. And what's interesting is each of us has the number of people that can fit in each level at any point in time varies greatly. And it can change depending on our personality, it can depend on our mental state, it can depend on the people we hang out with. There'll be times in our lives when we'll purge people out of those circles, and there'll be times when we expand those circles. So, if anybody had that in their head, I just want to make sure that's kind of an elephant in the room I wanted to call it. All right, step 1 to how to make use of these relationships. What do we do with them? We know lots of people, and I have big goals and big dreams. do those two things connect? Well, the first step is to recognize. And this is where I'm going to lead you through a little exercise. This is my kiddo, Ender, here. They help me oftentimes when I'm working on things, and I actually lead a networking group here in Columbus. And we did a fun little Jenga networking the other day, where I actually asked questions to the blocks. It was a lot of fun. And one thing I do in that networking is I'm always trying to get people to get past the, so what do you do? Because that's the simplest question we can answer. And it seems like the one we want to ask at a business networking event. And we probably are doing that here. What do you do? Who do you work for? That's the obvious connection. But the problem with that is it doesn't take us any farther. I don't know anything about you. I don't really know what we could do together. So how do we go farther? So that was what we were doing there. And so that's very similar. So we'll see if I have enough of these or not. This is the worksheet I'm going to have you, if you would like to fill it out as we go through it. I will describe it. You can take it home and do more of it. The backside, there's some notes. The reason I mention this is because this scan bar will take you to my website. On the top right, there's a link for Social Capital. This is downloadable on the website as well. So at the top, part 1, there's 3 lines and 3 things. And it'll ask you a personal goal or a professional goal. You don't have to keep this on your head. It'll be on the paper. It's a professional goal you're working on right now. What is a passion project or something that you are passionate about? And this can be environmental, social justice, homeless, whatever, it doesn't matter, it's for you. And then the third thing is, I think I said it's like social activity or something you enjoy doing. And what I'm gonna have you do is just kind of scribble down real quick what those 3 areas are. And the reason why those are significant is because we're then gonna think about people's names. And again, this is for you. And I think it's not gonna get all the way to the back, so I do apologize. If you have spare paper, you can also write these down. The whole point of this is, for each of those categories, the most pragmatic one is your professional goal. Most of you probably have that in your forefront because you're here at this event today. That is your mind. That is the thing that we work to consciously on a regular basis, probably easy to come with. The passion project, that thing that drives you, is important because that is your heart. At the end of the day, if all you are driven by is your mind, you will burn out. But if you're driven by your heart, you will find that fire that keeps you burning every day. And then the fun social thing, that's kind of your soul. The thing that brings light, the thing that makes you laugh, the thing that you enjoy doing is what kind of adds this spice to life. And for each of those categories, after you kind of scribble those down, I want you then to think about one name. Let's put it this way. I have 3 lines for each of those. And I want you to think of 3 names. Now, I'm not going to ask you to think of a total of 9 names while we sit here. But I would like you to scribble down 3 names. And those who didn't get a paper, if you want to type it in your phone or whatever, I am going to give you some time. I'm going to be quiet for a minute for you to do this. But here's a quick example. Who is somebody you currently know in one of those 4 circles? Acquaintance, casual, close, intimate. That could propel you forward with your professional goal. Who do you know is also passionate about that passion project? And who would you love to hang out with? And I would even challenge you to think about who maybe would the names that fit into those that aren't in that intimate or close category, but you would like them to be. Who's somebody that you kind of sort of know, that you kind of met, and you're like, ooh, I love this spike when I'm around her. Love to hang out with her. Play pickleball or something. So, I'm gonna give you a minute. If you can, at least come up with 3 names for any of those categories. Total 3 names. Because we'll talk about those. So I'll let you talk on it. All right. Nice thing is, like I said, for those of you who have the paper, you can take it home and also work on this. It's also available on my website, so you can download it and even work on this more later. And I would encourage you to do so. not just this one time. Before I move on to the second piece of this, I want to talk about personal and professional interactions. Very often in our professional spaces, we operate and interact in a very professional mode. COVID kind of helped remove some of those walls, make them a little more transparent, especially if we're sitting behind a computer, or kids pop up behind us, or a cat walks in front of a laptop, a black cat. Tail always goes right for the camera. The reason why it's important to recognize those two roles is that we have a habit of stepping into this kind of professional mode when we're interacting with people within professional spaces. It's not wrong, it's not bad. There's a way, though, in which it limits our ability to expand our social capital, because it tends to make us react transactional. Professional spaces, in the traditionally masculine spaces, tend to be all about what can you do for me, what can I do for you, what can happen right now. I love AJ's, when she was talking about the yin and the yang, because there's a lot of that. There's professionalism tends to be more yang, very, this is me, I need to project strength and confidence, and I know what's going on, I know what you need, let's talk about it. It's very in our head. If you've heard the phrase, know, like, and trust. Building relationships, networking, we need to build know, like, and trust. It's something that I have long been trying to make sense of, because everyone says you need to build know, like, and trust, but nobody tells you how to do it. And I have decided that it is not know, like, and trust. It is like, know, trust. And the reason why that rearrangement of words is significant is because it goes back to that emotional bond. I'm not going to spend time with you if I don't like you. This is the elephant in the room. And there's lots of reasons why we can or not like somebody, and I'm not trying to sound petty in any way, that's not what I mean. But if there's a resonance, I like you, I like your energy, I like what you're doing in the world, I will find opportunities to spend time with you and interact with you. And I will think of you, and I will think of ways that I can support you, and that I can think of opportunities and doors I can open for you. And that's what we want. We want to support people we like. We want to be supported by people that like us. That happens by personal interaction, by opening ourselves up, being a little bit vulnerable, being human to each other. And in a professional mode, we feel like we're not allowed to do that. And I have learned through guiding, networking, with some of the work I've done with my clients, that when we allow ourselves to open ourselves up, it actually gives the other person permission to open up to. And it is a beautiful thing. And hopefully everybody in this room has spaces where they feel comfortable to do so. Because I know there are some spaces that don't feel safe to do so. Okay. The next part of this exercise, and the next step we do. So the first step was recognition. Who do we know that could support us in the things that we are creating and the dreams and goals that we have? The second step is to initiate and cultivate. Fancy words. So I would love for you to look at those names that you have written down or in your phone or wherever you may have put them, and think of one person. If you take one thing from this workshop today, is that you picked one name off that list and you said, I am going to initiate something with this person. I would love, if anyone feels comfortable, to share with me who that one person is. You don't have to say their name per se, but what that person is to you and what you would like to see from that relationship. So Gail here said that she just today ran into someone she hasn't seen in 3 years. And she recognized that she was intended to follow up, did not. Wait, I don't know if I mentioned my business is the follow-up else. There's a reason why I have that name. It's a struggle. She hadn't connected, and this person says, I know somebody I want to refer to you, and there's some opportunities to collaborate and do some workshops. That is exactly the point that I would like to make. I bet all of you have a story of somebody you haven't seen in years, who maybe at one point was a close friend, or at least a casual friend. They kind of slipped into acquaintance because you haven't seen them in forever, you don't really think of them anymore, and suddenly they pop back up. And that re-engagement gives you opportunities again to do something. Professional, passion, for fun. And that is what understanding what your social capital is about. It is purposeful and intentional interactions to drive forward your goals and the other person's goals. Because there's so much more that can be created together. Over and over and over and over again, I see this. People miss out on opportunities because we're so busy in our day-to-day lives. And we're so isolated from each other. But when we take a little bit of time to reach out, re-engage the people we know, we don't really know what's possible. We are planting seeds that 3 years down the road may suddenly become this apple tree full of fruit. All right. So that is what my point with that was, picking that one name. If this makes sense for you, again, take this worksheet, look at it, think about it, consider it. But the most important thing is that you take action in reaching out to these people. Something isn't going to happen overnight with these people. Let's be clear, relationships are not a transactional thing. They are a growth thing. But when we are purposeful, I keep saying this phrase because it is one of my phrases, purposeful and intentional, it is beautiful what we can create. And then there's a third piece to this, and that's maintaining. And that is really where the idea of these relationships are apple seeds. The first time you meet somebody, you plant a seed. Now, you have a choice. Plant it, walk away. Come back in a few years and see if anything came up by itself. Sometimes it does. Or did you see something in that connection? You're like, ooh, I think there's something there. Lisa, I was in her session, and I've heard her story before, was sharing how there was a woman who came into her office selling her Clover for her restaurant business. They already had a payment system, didn't need it, but she's like, I want her to work with me. So she bought Clover just to keep that woman close. And had the opportunity to develop that relationship. There are people in your circles right now who would love to see what you're creating become real. And they're asking, can I help you? They might not know how to ask. They might not even know yet that they're saying it, but they resonate with your vision. And their vision resonates with yours. But it ain't gonna happen until somebody asks. Until you plant the seed and you nurture it, you take care of it, and maintain it. All right. I actually wrapped this up pretty quickly. I'm a bit of a speed talker. I said this for those who are here this morning. You came here today for personal development, for professional development. You came here to learn things, to develop skills. Some of you are hoping to come from this and learn a little bit about social media, and I'll give you a little tidbit about that. Be yourselves. What I say about personal and professional, that's a thing that I have learned in the online spaces that is missing and the things that people resonate. I got on TikTok because I have teenagers and I wanted to make sure that they were posting things that were safe. And then I got hooked into TikTok because I love video and I love the humor and I love the rawness. I post videos and I try really hard to be silly and weird. And sometimes I get all caught up in my head about what am I supposed to be posting? What am I supposed to be sharing for the algorithm? And no matter how hard I try to appease the algorithm, it doesn't work. But when I post for me and I post what I know is authentic for me, which is also resonant with the people that follow me, the people that know me, because that's really who my social media is for. It isn't for the strangers out there who have yet to find me. It's for the people I have met in person or online. We've had a conversation and I said, I want to follow you because I want to see you. I want to know what's happening in your world. And then you'll see me. And you'll go, I see you over there. I posted a picture of my notes for this onto my Facebook yesterday. And one of the ladies is like, I'm gonna be there tomorrow. And it's a good friend of mine that I haven't seen in a couple years. And I was like, I'm so excited to see you. Those are the kind of, we don't know what people see from us because it feels like we're shouting into the void. But those are opportunities. Are you trying to tell me time's up or are you just going?
7 more minutes.
Awesome. I'm just good. All right. So my point today was about with the social media is it is related to this. It is relationships. Go ahead.
I think it speaks directly to your initiate and cultivate though too.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just a different form of it.
I actually use a phrase for social media called passive knowability. It's a phrase I came up with because I thought it was fun, but the idea is when you are sharing bits of yourself online, we get, again, caught up in this concept of like, what do I post? What do people want to hear from you? What matters to you that you know matters to them? And share bits of your life. We laugh about people taking pictures of their food. And I have posted pictures of my food. But it's usually because, guess where I'm at today? Guess what I'm doing? What are you doing? I love to ask questions. I'm a very question person. So what's really interesting is that we look online and we compare ourselves to Nike, Amazon. Please don't be Amazon. I've worked with Amazon. Your secret power is you. It's you. That's what people are going to resonate with. It's the struggles. It's the victories. And it's hard to know, like, I sometimes am like, I'm really having a rough day right now. Do I share that online? And sometimes I do, because sometimes I need my community to reach out to me. I need to raise my hand and say, today sucks. Anybody else? Send me cat videos. And sometimes I can say, yesterday sucked and today I'm winning at it. I hope it is for you too. Know that tomorrow is better. But you don't always have to. People want to see you. And actually, honestly, I don't know where everyone is. If you have your own business, that's where we struggle oftentimes that do I post about my business? Do I post about me? Yes. But also in the corporate spaces, where sometimes you get swallowed up in the corporate, you get swallowed up in the company, the organization you're in, and you represent that. But you are you. You have your passions. You have the things you want to do. And tomorrow you might not be with that organization anymore. You might be doing something different. And the world wants, your community wants to see you and what you're up to. So it's all interconnected. I would challenge you to spend as much time on your social network, on building your social capital, as you do on your professional skills. Because we tend to do more for our professional skills than we do for our relationships. And our relationships will always feed us. So, to wrap up, I would love to give you a book suggestion if anyone wants one. My favorite book that introduced this concept to me is called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. Bright orange book, it's about this thick. You can read it in chapters. It's not a hard read. He did a good job. Love the book. He talks about the power of building your social network. As I mentioned on the papers, you can check out my website. I have a landing page specifically for social capital, which has a little bit more information, talks a little bit about me, has this workshop or this worksheet where you can download and work on it later. Again, when you need to. And if you have any other questions, I'm available.
You did say earlier that you don't like the starter, like what do you do? So what do you recommend a good starter would be to get a conversation about something?
Usually has something to do with the location that you're in. At this, it could be what brought you here today. You can start with what do you do, but like be curious. Best skill set you can develop. I have a habit of my first meetings with anybody are I'll find little strings to pull. I'll hear something about kids or pets or vacations or whatever. I just kind of pull at it, and they'll share with me, and then I'll share back, and we'll just go back and forth. A lot of times we won't ever get to the professional bit in that first, because I know you are a professional. I know you have things you want to create, but I want to see what we have in common first, and we'll get to the business of things. Have a wonderful day.